Hello everybody and good evening and greetings from Tampere. My name is Titta Kolin and I'm here today talking to you about psychological resilience. And why am I here today is that I have been actively involving with voluntary defense work. So I am an MPK committee trainer and I'm also chairing the board of Tampereen Seudun Reserviläisnaiset. I hold a master's degree in psychology and currently I'm working as a senior consultant in MPS and I have earlier worked as a human resources manager in various companies in different positions. I'm very happy to be here today with you because the topic of resilience has been very kind of interesting to many people in this voluntary defense work area and I'm very happy to discuss that with you today. So let's start with the topic. And as a goal for this session, I would like to suggest to you that I will introduce you with the concept of resilience. I will provide you some perspectives also why and in which situations resilience is especially needed. And today I will be approaching this topic from an actor's perspective, meaning that I try to elaborate a bit a viewpoint from a person who is actively involving in situations and is not only a participant but also has some kind of active role. So is willing and also capable to kind of act in the situations. Not necessarily a leader, but an actor. And I will also share a couple of practical tools with you that you can use in everyday life to strengthen the resilience. Okay, so let's start with the definition of resilience. I believe that this concept is something that you can find many definitions if you, for example, go to Google and see what it tells you about resilience. I have shared with you here the definition of American Psychologist Association, which tells us that resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, threats, or other significant sources of stress. So this definition highlights the situation that is very special in some sense. So there is something that is going beyond our normal everyday life. And what I also here personally like is that this indicates that the resilience is a process. So it is not something that happens kind of one time, but it is more about having a wider perspective and several stages. And what also resilience could be seen is that it is a psychological flexibility and strength. So we are using abilities that we have gained throughout our life and from our previous experiences. Sometimes they are conscious, sometimes they can be also unconscious. So we utilize kind of characteristics and skills that we are not necessarily even so aware of. Resilience helps us to adapt and also to recover from challenging situations. From this slide, I wish that you remember the picture because for me, this is very well describing the kind of the core idea of resilience. So there is a pressure that is inevitable. So we all face pressure and stressful situations in our lives. But really the idea of the resilience is that we recover from those situations, also learning something from them. Resilience is about persistence, positivity, and hope. When it comes to Finnish language, there is often a discussion whether resilience equals with Finnish word sisu. I believe that we all do have our personal kind of opinions for that, but I tend to think that sisu is not totally similar thing than resilience because sisu is more like being a bit of stubborn and resilience is highlighting the flexibility and recovery aspect. Resilience is also the ability to see your own influence, so your own possibility to influence situations and be active in those. And as already said, it is also the ability to recover from setbacks. So life is not always going as planned, and we can face different kind of challenging situations. But what is our ability to really kind of learn and be a bit of more active, more capable after those is the kind of the core of resilience. And resilience is not something that is kind of stable status, but it is really a skill that can be developed and is also developing throughout the life. A couple of resilience building blocks, and you can see that I'm here with this slide referring to mieli.fi page, where I have adopted these concepts and translated them from Finnish. What is interesting in the concept of resilience is that basically being resilient is same thing that having the resilient skills. So in a way, you can improve your resilience by acting in a resilient way. It starts from having an open mind to new things, so that you are really kind of able and willing to see possibilities to go into new situations, learn and try as well. So this is kind of the first step of resilience, and this is also the first step of personal and professional growth. Ability to see the bigger picture and kind of the relationship between things. This enables us to put ourselves into the situation and see our role, and also to see how things link to each other. Also adapting the external perspective, so having a bit of wider view to the situation, it often helps to understand how things and kind of factors are linking to each other. Ability to regulate emotions in a challenging situations. So this is quite important personal skill to kind of be able to be in control of ourselves, even though we are in a situation where understandably there are strong emotions. We might be irritated, frustrated, or even scared. But ability to have the control and remain functional is one of the elements of resilience. So we don't freeze, we don't panic, but we can continue working in that situation. Also having a kind of self-esteem, trust in own abilities. So we can see that we are able to do something in the situation, perhaps not in a perfect way, perhaps not as well as in a, let's say, normal situation, but we rely on ourselves and our skills, and we are also willing and able to use them. And we have the skill of empathy, so we can understand how other people who are involved in the same situation, what they might be feeling and experiencing, and we can put ourselves to their position and see from their viewpoint. Empathy doesn't mean that we kind of dive into the same emotions that other persons are sharing, but more about ability to understand from other person's perspective. And finally, that we have the attitude of realistic optimism. So we are realistic, we see the situation as it is, but we also have an optimistic view to the future. So we see possibilities and ways to move on from the situation. So these are the kind of resilience building blocks and also characteristics of a resilient person. Coping skills, that is a very established concept in psychology. And then what it means in practice is that coping skills are the skills that we use to deal with problems and difficulties. Again, this is something that you can find many definitions and classifications. They can be cognitive or behavioral, they can be individual or social, they can be problem or emotion focused, proactive or reactive by nature. What I would like to emphasize now in the context of resilience is the proactive and problem focused coping skills, because that is something that helps us to keep our focus in the future and also have the active role in solving and kind of reacting to the situations. Generally, coping can be considered as ability to manage stress. So we have some healthy and well-functioning stress management skills. We are able to use our time wisely. So we know what are the important areas of our life and we can allocate time accordingly. Work, rest, social relations, families, hobbies, and so on. And we have the ability to utilize our problem-solving skills and also to make the necessary decisions in a timely manner. And also the lifestyle management, generally maintaining the good balance in between the different areas of life. This is something that guarantees that we are able to manage the situations, we can maintain our energy level and also our own well-being, even though the situation gets a bit tough sometimes. And I also would like to emphasize the importance of proactive coping. So not only to use the coping skills and being resilient in a situation when something has happened, but also to a right degree, consider what might happen and think about yourself and kind of mentally put yourself into different situations so that you can develop in advance the relevant skills. Because then when something happens, typically that is not the best possible moment to start learning, but the learning and development is something that happens before anything happens. That is the core idea of the preparedness also in the wider meaning. So know yourself and develop the skills that you think that are valuable and important. Why people then react in a different ways? So of course we do have different personalities. Personality is also something that is developed via the life experiences that we have had. And on the upper row there is change experiences, and this is actually something that I would really like to emphasize here, because turning the change experiences into positive learning experiences is extremely important skill, basically for everything in life, at work and also in our free time. So we are facing stressful situations, unexpected situations, difficulties in our life. So how we can manage and turn them into learning experiences is important skill, because that then kind of defines whether that becomes as a strength or whether it becomes a burden to our minds. And also not only for ourselves, but also for the people who are around us. So what can we do in order to support them to manage the change experiences and difficult situations and help them kind of turn them into learning experiences? When taking a look at to the lower row there, of course, the current life situation is always impacting how we react in different situations. if we are having a very, let's say, busy situation, perhaps a lot of family responsibilities, stressful job, problems with our health or similar challenges, certainly that is impacting to our overall energy level. Life situations, of course, also vary. So sometimes we get a bit surprised at why we are reacting in a certain way right now, because earlier we were reacting differently. Sometimes it can be explained by the changes in the, or some recent changes in the personal life, for example. Perception of own capabilities and resources. And here I would like to actually differentiate these two things. So the capabilities and resources is one thing, and then our own perception of them is another thing. People often are a bit hesitant, and sometimes they are also underestimating their own capabilities and skills. I would encourage actually everybody to really learn about oneself, be proud of the strengths that one has, and really bravely use them when the situation requires so. We might surprise ourselves also what we actually can do when that is then needed and the situation is very demanding. The support network is quite crucial and really important source of strength for all of us. It is easier to be strong when you have a good support network around you. That is also something that can be built and certainly requires maintenance so that it is kept up. And we are part of the support network for many people around us. But when taking a look at this slide, I think that it's quite clear that we do react differently in demanding situations. And not only knowing yourself, but also knowing the people around you and bit of anticipating that what might be their needs and how you can support them is also relating to the resilience. Well, then, as we are different, we are also different kind of adapters to challenging situations. With the following slide, I would like to kind of support your self-knowledge and kind of ask you to consider that what are the typical roles that you can find from this slide and apply to you. And here you can see then 5 different styles of adapting, or 5 different resilience styles. So first of all, there are people who are cognitive, who really like to think through the issues and are very solution oriented, very fact-based perhaps. They like to know that what is there on the table, what is relevant, what is known. And they really spend a lot of time in thinking about the situations and what can be learned. Then there are persons who are more emotional. So for them, it is important that they really can identify, name, process, discuss, share their emotions with others. For them, it is important that they can find and see possibilities and hope in every situation. Then there are people who rely on social interaction and social networks. And for them, the discussion with others, sharing things, sharing thoughts and experiences is extremely important. And the social context and the social network is source of support. There are people who use physical activity as a way to process feelings. These persons like to be active at home and outdoors. Perhaps they have some physical and sports activities, and that is really helping them to manage and process their thoughts and emotions as well. And then there are persons who are mental with their approach. And for them, it is typically important that they can really kind of spend time on meditation, relaxation. They have time to calm down. And perhaps when you look at this slide, you can also find yourself from many different boxes here, and I think that is very, very true for many of us. So we are not only relying on one strategy, but we are having a combination of two or even more strategies, perhaps even changing between these a bit depending on from the situation. If you think that some of these strategies is very strong for you, perhaps then I would like to encourage you to try some other as well, so that you can kind of broaden the set of skills that you have, because that is then bringing you a flexibility also to react and kind of take care of yourself in different situations. So we are different in many ways, and now this slide then shows you the transactional model of stress and coping. And this is very famous model. This is based on the research of Lazarus, and perhaps this is even familiar to some of you. This is kind of walking us through about the process of resilience. Perhaps you remember in the beginning of the presentation, it was highlighted in one definition that the resilience is a process of adapting. We live in a certain environment where we have certain stressors. If you take a look at to the right-hand side of this slide, we have a perception of the situation. So we make a primary appraisal, that is an interpretation of the stressors that are in the situation. So this is the first step that we need to be very kind of conscious about our own thinking. So are we interpreting the situation to be dangerous? Is it positive, or is it irrelevant or like neutral? And then we make the secondary appraisal, so we consider our own resources in this situation. Are they sufficient or are they insufficient? And these first two steps, they are appraisals, so we make an interpretation of the situation. So it is always very important to be kind of careful and try to see the wider picture, whether this appraisal is correct or not. Can we sometimes question a bit our own appraisal? If we see the situation as dangerous and we think that our resources are insufficient, then we most probably have the experience of stress. And then we apply certain coping methods. So in this slide, they are divided into problem-focused and emotion-focused. We always do make a reappraisal of the situation, and that is the basis for the learning experience. Perhaps you remember that I emphasized the importance of having the ability to turn change experiences into learning experiences. So this is now then the step that defines to a great extent how we behave and how we kind of perceive the next possible situation that is coming. A couple of questions I have wrote down to this slide to kind of inspire your thinking. So consider what is the initial appraisal of the situation, what is then the estimate about own resources, how do I address the situation, and what do I learn from what happened. So kind of keeping the positive aspect here, and especially now in this learning stage, to really make efforts to understand what happened, what did I do, and what did I learn from this all. I will conclude the individual resilience part to a very simple cycle of reflection. So this 4-step model is something that helps us to make the interpretation of the situation and about ourselves. And it starts with observation from the situation, making an assessment of it, making also an assessment that what needs to be done. What did I do? What would I do differently next time? And then practice the skill that you like to develop or do differently. And then kind of follow up that you are really doing the practicing and making something in a different way, utilizing different skills. And then again, kind of start from the observation in the next situation that occurs, making the assessment, starting to practice, and then making the follow-up. So this is kind of the reflection cycle that we can do with ourselves. And in this way, we are always in a good and balanced development mood and kind of stage. We are not exaggerating our interpretations of the situations, but we are not kind of neglecting them either. But we are making constantly neutral, objective observations of ourselves, and then making the efforts for continuous learning. So now this is summarizing and kind of concluding the individual part of the resilience with a quote from Joseph P. Kennedy: "When the going gets tough, the tough get going." The ultimate idea of the resilience is to remain able to act and also to recover. And then we are moving on to the community resilience. And to start this section, I would like to introduce to you the security strategy of society, so Finland's comprehensive model of society strategy, security strategy. And you can see that the psychological resilience is there on the very top of this diamond. And in the core of this diamond, there are individuals. So they are really the enablers of the security strategy and the comprehensive security of the society. We all do have the right to security, to live in a secure environment, but we also do have a role in building that around us. So we all should be able and willing to act to support and create a secure environment. Then how that is done, especially in a VUCA environment. This acronym VUCA originally comes from the military context, and it refers to an environment or a situation that is volatile, uncertain, complicated, and ambiguous. And let's spend a couple of minutes in kind of thinking and discussing through what this means in practice. So the volatile part here refers to a situation when the environment is very dynamic. It is changing very quickly. So things and situations really change rapidly. What applied yesterday doesn't apply today anymore. And that the rate of the changes is kind of increasing all the time. Uncertain refers to the lack of reliability and sometimes even to the lack of information from the environment. So we don't always know all the facts, or we can't trust them, their reliability. Complicated refers to the situation where the connections between elements are not clear. So there is not clear cause and effect relationship between the elements. So the systems, they are connected, but we don't necessarily know how they are connected. And ambiguous refers to difficulty in assessing and understanding the reality. So it is somehow kind of beyond our comprehension. When you think about this kind of VUCA environment, it's quite clear that the normal planning methods do not apply because they might be too slow, or they might be too rigid, or they are not answering to the right question or the right challenge. The VUCA environment is something that requires resilience, not only from the individuals, but also from the teams or communities that are dealing and operating in this kind of environment. So what are then the actions that are needed in VUCA situations? Definitely one needs to anticipate key emerging issues, so estimates what might come, what might appear. As said, not always the situation is such that we can really know that what is coming up, but we really need to anticipate. Consequently, we need to prepare ourselves for different sceneries and challenges. Again, we are not sure whether they are the right kind of preparative actions or what are the challenges that might come, but we need to keep kind of the thinking and our preparedness open for many different sceneries. I also would simply state ACT. So not planning too long or in a too detailed manner, because sometimes you need to act so that you can see whether that is working or not. And in order to make sure or try to ensure whether you did the right thing, you need to assess the progress, collect observations, and feedback about the actions that has been done, and estimate whether they did take you to the right direction. And then be ready to change the course of actions. VUCA environment is not something that you can plan your proceeding in a linear manner, but it is more like trying, probing, piloting something, and then assessing the situation, collecting the observations, and then deciding whether something else needs to be done. And I would say that in this kind of situation, an individual really can and should use the resilient skills that were discussed a couple of slides ago, because that helps to navigate in this kind of generally uncertain situation where no right answers necessarily exist. Well, when talking about community resilience, we are not alone there. So one tool that I would like to introduce to you is empathy map. Because when you are working with people, it is quite essential and quite beneficial that you have a perception that what are they thinking in the situation. And to understand that, you need to deep dive a bit further, consider what are their perceptions of the situation. So what do they see, what do they hear, what do they feel, and what do they wish? So this empathy map is a kind of also a mental map that I would like to bring to you and encourage you to use in a situation when you benefit from understanding the thoughts and kind of possible underlying assumptions or wishes or fears of the stakeholders with whom you are cooperating. So spend a couple of minutes and really put yourself to the position of the other persons in the situation, and how does the world look like to them? What do they see in their environment? Written, otherwise existent information. What do they hear? What is the official talk? What is the unofficial talk? What are there some rumors, for example, or some other ways of or situations when they hear something? What do they feel? What can you observe from them? What do they share with you? What your intuition tells to you about their feelings? And what do they wish? Have they expressed something, or again, is this something that your intuition tells you that they are wishing for something, but perhaps not saying that out loud? The purpose of this empathy map is to help you then to consider your actions and what you would be doing in the situation. Also, then one kind of food for thought about feedback, and not only about feedback, but also the concept of feed forward. Often when you need to react quickly and you are in an uncertain or unclear situation, the quickest way to get things clear is to discuss and ask. And the quickest way to correct the actions is to give feedback. Sometimes we are a bit shy about this, so we are not necessarily asking the feedback, and we might be a bit hesitant in giving feedback as well. Creating a feedback culture is always very good, but not necessarily possible in a situation or environment that is VUCA, as described earlier. Feedback is evaluating about something that has happened. Feed forward is about considering things that you like to do, you like to achieve. It is always good to ask feedback about people around you. So, how did I do? What could I do differently? What went well? And then use this feed forward to kind of co-create. Use the strength of the people that are around you. So you have a goal, you need to do something, you need to achieve something. How can the people help you in that? What are their ideas and their viewpoints? So utilize their resources to define the steps that you would need to take towards your goal, and what do others expect from you or wish from you. So simply asking feedback or feed forward discussions, and when someone is asking feedback from you, then use that possibility to give feedback to the person, because combining feedback and feed forward, typically a great ideas can be created. And then psychological safety might be a concept that you have seen or is discussed at your workplace. Quite topical recently, and also important that we all can really give our best efforts in any possible situations. Psychological safety, I would like to define it as a culture that is based on trust, and where every employee and individual can feel valued and welcomed. We make mistakes, we face setbacks and difficulties. Psychological safety is about taking them, accepting and that this kind of things happen, and when one is making mistake, there is no fear of sharing it. It is rather a learning experience, not something that you are punished. Psychological safety is also trust and appreciation, not only on individual but also on group level. And it is not a situation where we can do or say whatever we want, but it is about the common direction and constructive interaction and commitment about the common goals of the group. The goal of the psychological safety, or the result of the psychological safety, is that we can really utilize our strengths in the best possible way. We are in a right way brave to take actions, and if then something doesn't go as planned, we take that as a learning experience, as a possibility to improve our operations, so that it makes us even stronger and even more capable of acting. So now, when thinking about communities resilient, I have now here introduced the empathy map, the feedback and feed forward concepts, and also psychological safety. I believe that these are all something that we can use in our own life and in our own community and the groups where we are part of. This is my last slide about this presentation, and this is summarizing the characteristics of the resilient community. Again, these are something that we can work on, so we can support with our own actions. So having the positive worldview, positive interpretations of the situations, strong self-image, meaning the community self-image, so it does have an identity. Having a goal orientation, why this group is existing, what is the purpose of it. Also cognitive flexibility, meaning that we gather, process and share information and data. We are able to think together. Social flexibility, we are adaptive and we value diversity, and we utilize the different resources in a flexible manner. We have enough and correct kind of planning and organization. And we are proactive, meaning that we have the focus in the future and we make actions in time to react to situations. And finally, we have care and well-being, that we care for each other and we take care of our own well-being and also the common well-being. So I wish that this combination now met the goals of this session. So I were successful in sharing the concept of resilience with you on an individual level and in a community level. And I also wish that you got some practical tools that you can utilize in your own life and in everyday situation. And I thank you for this discussion and for your time. Thank you very much.